we talked about the pharmaceutical companies, and something that I wanted to ask is, have they contacted you or threatened you or given you a hard time? Have you had any communication from any of these interests?
I have been contacted by a couple of interests to do with pharmaceutical companies. As a matter of fact, one outfit offered me 1 million shares, if I would be willing to work with them.
Oh.
But I look at these people for what they are, and there's no way I want anything to do with these criminals. And the bottom line is here that this medicine does not belong to any government or any damn company. It belongs to everyone on this planet. It belongs to we the people. And it's just about time that these rich people figured that out. And it's just about time that our governments all allowed it to be grown so we can so we can begin to heal this planet and heal ourselves.
Rick, you've been working with this and you've been exposed to this, according to my research, since 2001. And your journey treating people and healing people and spreading awareness, I want to know about the wow moments. I talk to people who are activists and filmmakers and artists, and they're on a path to better the community, better the world they live in. And I always like to ask them this. I always like to say, what was the wow moment? And you know what it is. I can tell, so why don't you go on ahead and tell it.
Well, everything about this medicine was a wow moment.
All right, there you go.
Like the first year, when I started supplying this to other people, like for the first year, it was basically just for, exterior skin conditions, warts, moles, unhealthy things, psoriasis, that type of thing. And it worked just one miracle after another. But then about a year later, around the summer of 2004, I started supplying it to people for internal conditions like cancer. And again, just wow, wow, wow. Every time you turn around, well, they're cancer-free, cancer-free. And I was seeing this stuff full. One guy, he was in his 80s. He was in the hospital, and they'd given him 24 hours to live. And his son walked in and gave him a dose of oil, and he left the hospital the next day.
Oh, my goodness.
What does that tell you? And I've seen so many people with diabetics cured, all types of these horrible, so-called incurable diseases, MS, Lou Gehrig's, all of these diseases, AIDS. We're all terrified of these things. And they tell us, oh, there's no cure. Well, I don't know. From what I'm seeing with this oil, if it ain't a cure, it's one hell of a control. Because, I've seen people with AIDS go right off all of everything. They just use the oil, and their viral loads go right back to zero. So, there's just no end to the effects this oil has. And one thing people have to realize is that, hemp is not just one thing. There's thousands of different strains of hemp. And each strain has its own medicinal values. So, we need the freedom to do the research so we can determine, which ones are the best for which conditions or which mix of oils from different strains work the best. It's just simple, basic research. And where there's no harm involved with the use of this medicine, we can do this research while we're healing the people. Because we already know it's going to help them. So there's no danger at all. We should just go ahead and get into this and stop wasting time. Men, women, and children everywhere are dying for no damn reason. They're laying in the dark suffering. Why? Because their governments seem to want it that way. Well, I think it's just about time that we showed them that we would like things done a little bit differently.
Well, Rick, I think you're right, and I think some voters were definitely successful in sending that message this election cycle. I think it is my impression that prohibition is failing.
If everything I've told the public about this wasn't true, well, why wouldn't these medical professionals come up on the air and take me on and defrock me? I'll tell you why. Because they can't do it. I'm the only one telling the truth. But the simple truth is, I can defrock them in seconds, and they know it. Because they're not practicing medicine. They're not following their own Hippocratic oath. They're giving us all these horrible chemicals, poisons, radiation. Who in God's green earth would call that medicine? Read the Hippocratic oath sometime. That's what medicine should be about. And this is what they should be practicing if they are to be real doctors. I don't have a problem today with good surgeons and people like that. We need doctors like that to put us back together after we've been in an accident. That side of medicine's okay. But the other side of medicine, where they're giving everybody all these chemicals and poisons, that's just a total fraud. And it has to come to an end. I look at these doctors that do this as being nothing more than drug dealers for the pharmaceutical industry, because that's exactly what they are.
Yes, it seems that the harmful substances are sanctioned legal while the healing substances are made illegal. And with legalization in the United States, of course, there were measures passed there was a measure in Massachusetts passed for medical marijuana, and in Colorado and Washington it was legalized for recreational use. In addition to that, with this going on, I've heard rumblings of a more energy in Canada as far as their movement to end the drug war there, end prohibition in Canada. Have you been hearing?
I haven't seen it, brother. I haven't seen it. If anything, I think the rules in Canada now are worse than when I left there in 2009. Stephen Harper wants to put everybody in jail because he's a bought and paid for Bilderberger. And
Okay.
I mean, he was openly seen attending their meetings. That's our prime minister. It strikes me that the man might just be a crook. But no, I don't see Canada actually making any big forward steps. But there are different countries now, like South America, Colombia decriminalized, and as a matter of fact, there's several countries in South America that are starting to look at this plant in a whole new light. The Israelis in Israel, they've had big research projects underway now for quite some time. Back in 2010, I talked to 4 Israelis, and they told me that there were 7 of them at that time that had licenses to grow 1.5 million plants each for medicinal purposes. So Israel's moving forward. The Czech Republic's getting involved. There's several countries. Switzerland, they're looking into this. There's all kinds of countries that are actually actively participating in getting this moved forward. But to me, they're not doing it nearly quickly enough. And I wouldn't hold my breath for Canada to do it, because basically, Canada is responsible for this. Because if they had done the right thing in 2003 when I contacted them, and if they had brought this medicine out in a rational way, none of this would be happening. And when you look at the number of people that have died worldwide from cancer since 2003, and all these other horrible conditions that this oil works magic on, who's responsible? Could it be the Canadian government? And of course, we can't be about the American government because, like we said, they've known about this since the 1970s. So they're all as guilty as sin, and they're not representing the people. And what they're truly doing, they're acting in breach of trust.
Rick, your book just came out, Phoenix Tears, a Rick Simpson story. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your book and what you go into in it?
Well, the book is just the first couple chapters is just a brief overlay of my early life, and then how I discovered this medicine and what transpired through the court systems and and all the corruption I seen. Believe me, I mean, it's a very compelling book, and unfortunately, it basically reaches out and slaps you right in the face, because this is the world we actually live in. Look at the corruption. We've got a cure for cancer. I mean, I stood in the Canadian courts. I had 10 patients ready to testify. Some of those patients had been cured of terminal cancers, and I had 6 doctors there to testify too. They wouldn't let them on the stand. And what kind of legal system is that? They said that the testimony these people would give had no bearing on my case. Because they don't they don't want you to have medical arguments about this substance in courts. So they just push it out the back door. Nobody has the right to do that. Aren't we supposed to be looking for a cure for cancer? I mean, I was so disgusted when I contacted the cancer societies and all these people, even the United Nations, the people that should have done something, and they did nothing. It sickened me. And I think you mentioned earlier there today about, these modified foods or genetically modified, Monsanto and all that, and I totally agree with you. What they're doing is a horror story. It should be brought to an end. And I mean, the only reason they're doing it is they want to lower the nutrient value in the food. Knock the nutrient value down so the people still eat the food, but it doesn't give them the food value that they need. And then they got this stupid Codex Alimentarius, the outlawing of the natural. So you won't even be able to buy vitamins. Well, that's a hell of a good idea now, isn't it? So the people have food that has little nutrient anymore. They have no access to vitamins, which means they're going to get sick, which means they're going to need more drugs. We're going to need more doctors. Now, who's that going to help? Could it be the drug companies? I don't think it's going to help the human race any. And as far as I'm concerned, anybody that would even go on the floor of any parliament anywhere and introduce Codex Alimentarius, he is a traitor to his own people.